You were praised for staying composed, for showing up calm, for meeting expectations, and for keeping a steady face even when something inside felt strained. Over years, that steady posture can become less like a strategy and more like who you are. Welcome to Mini Mind Hack. We'll trace Bushido's historical roots, examine how a discipline-shaped self works in psychological terms, and test 3 small practices you can try this week to see whether your composure is serving you or narrowing you. Bushido is often called the way of the warrior. But it was not a single law or a single document. It grew over centuries inside a particular social world. From the late 12th century, Japan's politics were organized around warrior rule. Power shifted between imperial court rituals and military governments called shogunates. Local lords, the daimyo, ran domains and relied on military households, the samurai, for governance and defense. Society was sharply layered. Peasants produced food under obligations. Artisans worked in towns. Merchants traded goods. Samurai managed land, adjudicated disputes, trained in arms, and kept order. Some samurai rose by military success. Over time, many positions became hereditary and tied to stipends. There were also ashigaru, foot soldiers whose wartime merit sometimes allowed social mobility. Life varied greatly by class and by region. Foreign contact also changed over time. Japan had exchanges with China and Korea. In the 16th century, Europeans arrived and brought firearms and trade. In the 17th century, the Tokugawa government moved to a policy called sakoku, a controlled isolation that limited foreign contact to a few ports. Even then, places like Nagasaki remained narrow windows for trade. These shifts, openness, then controlled closure, made local stability and predictable behavior highly valuable for elites. When outside options are constrained, codes that enforce loyalty, restraint, and order are practical adaptations. What did the code demand of a person? Bushido combined Confucian duty, Zen attention training, courtly ritual, and practical rules for life in a hierarchical, often violent world. A samurai was expected to regulate fear, suppress hesitation, and act according to duty. Emotion was not erased, but subordinated. Frugality, simplicity, readiness to accept shame, and even the culturally specific practice of seppuku were parts of that moral landscape. A note here, references to seppuku must be read in historical and communal context, not as an ethical prescription for today. If you imagine a samurai's day, you see ritual and role. There were drills and weapons training. There were administrative tasks and estate management. There were rules about speech and honor. The social logic rewarded those who could subordinate private desire to public duty. That visible composure built trust within a highly ordered system. It reduced violent unpredictability and aligned individual incentives with group survival. We must also be careful about later reinterpretations. Inazo Nitobi wrote his well-known book, Bushido, the soul of Japan for Western readers at the turn of the 20th century. His account emphasized virtues that translated well across cultures and helped export a coherent image of samurai ethics. Modern historians such as Carl Friday stress a more contingent view. Bushido should be located in specific political and social circumstances, not treated as an eternal national soul. That nuance matters when we try to use the past as a mirror. Now consider the psychology. The Bushido-shaped self is highly structured. Identity anchors in role and obligation rather than fleeting feelings. That yields clarity. It makes action under pressure possible. It reduces inner conflict by narrowing acceptable responses. But systems of continuous suppression have costs. Roy Baumeister's work suggested that self-regulation is effortful and that prolonged control draws on limited capacity. Subsequent research has complicated a simple one-resource model, yet the practical lesson remains. Chronic suppression exacts physiological and experiential costs: fatigue, irritability, narrowed attention, and less room for spontaneity. Carl Gustav Jung offers a complementary clinical frame. Parts of the psyche that are consistently excluded do not disappear. They retreat into the shadow, and they return indirectly, as disproportionate anger, as sudden collapse, or as compulsive behavior. A person may look steady for years while unprocessed dynamics accumulate inside. Hartmut Rosa, a contemporary German sociologist, brings this into the social realm. He uses the term resonance to describe moments when the world feels responsive, when something answers us and we are not just managing life, but actually engaged in it. Cultures centered on control and predictability, he argues, make these moments rarer. Put these threads together and you see a pattern. Someone shaped by constant inner discipline can function well. They meet obligations and often earn respect. At the same time, small pleasures may dull. Spontaneity grows rare. Asking for help feels shameful. Relationship life can be governed by an implicit rule book. Behaviorally, you notice rigid routines, a habit of solving distress by redoubling effort, and a reluctance to reveal uncertainty. Here is a short image to make that vivid. Imagine a parent who answers a child's worry with plans and fixes, never with a question. What does that feel like? The parent is praised for reliability. Privately, they are exhausted and lonely. Their care becomes instrumental. That pattern is common and often invisible. Before we go further, try 3 small experiments. They are not therapy. They are simple tests that produce information. First, twice this week, take a 3-minute check-in. Sit quietly and name one feeling aloud. No explanation, no solving. Just label it and note what changes in how you act afterward. Second, do a role audit. Write the dominant role you were performing in the last hour: parent, manager, student, fixer. And then schedule one undirected activity this week purely for curiosity, not productivity. Third, practice a safe disclosure. Tell one trusted person one sentence about how you feel. Frame it as a test. You are gathering data about how connection alters your experience, not asking them to fix you. These practices produce 2 effects. They give your nervous system new input, and they create empirical feedback about whether your habit of composure serves or constrains you. Over time, small oscillations between control and openness support resilient identity. Change is slow and accumulative, not dramatic. Returning to interpretation, reading Bushido as a mirror helps. It shows how honor and control can stabilize life. It also shows the limits of a code that becomes fixed identity. Instead of asking, "Am I disciplined enough?" you might ask, "Which parts of me are allowed to speak?" And, "Does my inner rule book support adaptation or only endurance?" If this perspective shifted something for you, try one of the small experiments this week and note what you observe. Thank you for staying with me. If this perspective was useful, you can support the channel by subscribing or leaving a comment. Take care, and I'll see you next time.